Guys, welcome. We are at the final pitch of the New York's Capital Region I-Core Sites NSF Innovation Core Program. Yeah, baby, how about that? That's a mouthful. So, welcome to tonight's show. Technical errors. Hang on, it's coming. Perhaps not. Richard, oh, you know what? I got it, watch this. There's an on button. Very important to turn it on. This is our fourth meeting, fourth cohort. I think it's the fourth, right? So 4, I counted it up. A few years ago, we got a grant from the National Science Foundation to support this type of thing. It's like an outreach to the entire Capital District. For anybody that's got an idea, especially, it's got to be a scientific idea. If you got a scientific idea, the National Science Foundation will give you money to see if you can take that idea and make it into a product and company. Pretty cool. NSF did this a few years ago. They made a switch. Historically, they've just invested in science. But they were like, man, we got all this cool science. Why isn't it getting out? It's all stuck in the lab still. How do we get the science out of the lab and into the public for commerce to help the economy? So they developed this thing called the I-Core program. I-Core program is a hard-ass program. It's a difficult program. They put you through your paces. It's a national program, competitive to get into. They give you $50,000 to do customer discovery, and they are ruthless. They are tough. They hammer you. Kelly and I and Richard, we think of this as a softer program. We're the local program. So we're the feeder program to the national program. So we hope that all the teams in here get to go on to the national program and do great, wondrous things, and then actually help the U.S. economy. So that's sort of the idea. We're based on the national program. We make people go off and do customer discovery. That's what the whole focus is, which means you got this great invention for something. Go out and start talking to people. Who wants it? Who wants to buy it? Why do they want to buy it? Does it actually solve an issue or a need that they have? So all these difficult questions to answer. They may seem easy. Usually you invent something like, oh, damn, this thing's the coolest thing ever. I know people will want to buy it. Nothing has ever just sold itself. So we train people on how to say, you know what, this ain't going to sell itself. What process steps do you need to go through to see if you can actually make a company out of this? Okay? Funded by the National Science Foundation. So each one of these teams gets about $3,000 to go off and to do customer discovery, travel to conferences and things like that. This time we had over 25 applicants. We selected 17. We have the premium blend, the 17 top teams right here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think, we have 16 presenters tonight? 50. We have 15 presenters. Dropping like flies because we're so tough on them. So 15 presentations tonight, and you're going to hear from them. You guys ever come up with an idea yourself? Anybody come up with an idea? Come on, I know you guys have had ideas. Never. I know you guys are giggling, right? You've even I know you guys have come up with ideas.
An original idea?
No, I've never had an original idea. But you come up with an idea, right? People in this room have come up with ideas. How about, wonder how you cure cancer, especially breast cancer? We have smartphones, why can't we share the information easier? Can I convince people to breastfeed more? How do you get kids with medical treatment get more education when they're in hospitals? How do you, whoa, all these freaking ideas, it's crazy. These are all the ideas that are in this room right now. Look at those things, take a read. Pretty impressive freaking ideas. So, pretty good stuff. We got a lot of people with a lot of different ideas. However, the whole point of this program, it's great to have an idea. It's exciting to have an idea. It's wonderful to have an idea. And I saw your hands, everybody in this room has had an idea. But damn, taking that idea and making a company out of it or making a product out of it, oh, that's tough. So it gets hard to take your idea and move it through an entire process to get down here where you hit a target and you're actually selling something. It's something commercially viable and you're making money off of this idea. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. This whole process that we're doing in this class is really taking people through this, and we lovingly call it the Valley of Suck. Because you have this great idea, and at the end you're making money, but everything in between sucks. It really does. It's work. It's the Valley of Hard Work, and these guys have been wallowing in the Valley of Hard Work for a long time, and they're still in it. So you guys aren't done, even though you're done with this program, you're not done with the hard work, okay? So, good groups, you guys are gonna be impressed. There's many ways to do a final presentation. We're doing this as a pitch for investment. We could have done a pitch just to get to know the company, other kinds of pitches and things like that. But I thought it would be good to show, do a pitch like for some pseudo investors. Give the team some practice on how to pitch to investors and things like that. Hey, if you guys want to whip out your checkbook at the end and start investing, I'm loving it. That would be fantastic. But that's sort of the point. So you'll see at the end an ask or a request for some cash to support the business plan going forward, or maybe a request for some help and things like that. So that's the reason. 8 minutes, you guys that are presenting, we got a little timer up here. You're gonna see me get all fidgety in my seat. I might even stand up. Little time for Q&A afterwards, so feel free to ask some questions if you're in the audience. Please meet up afterwards, especially if you could help. If you have something, if you have some know-how, something like that that can help the team. Everybody here is trying to take their dream and make a reality out of it. Give them some help if you know something, okay? Sound good? Thank you. Let me get the first team up. Oh, and thanks to Richard and Kelly for most of the work on this. How about that? Before I forget, Jason was the original grant writer for this. How about that? Yeah, Jason.
Also held the door.
And he was the doorman. I can't believe it.
But thanks to Clint for really running the program.
Oh.
Fearless leader here.
I'll go on. All right, first up is going to be a little company called Live Drop. All right. All right, enjoy.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We're a Live Drop team. So, have you ever witnessed some of your loved families or friends who were diagnosed with cancer, suffering from all these aggressive, invasive treatments, surgery, and chemotherapies? And after all this long torture and suffering, the cancer came back. And the cancer fought back. So have they felt like really frustrated and hopeless? Well, Julie, a cancer patient from Sloan Kettering, she did feel that way. She told us she feels that her cancer treatments are like a shot in the dark. Every time when the cancer came back, it's always different, and it's hard to treat, and the treatment has to change. So we keep asking one question: why does cancer relapse happen again and again? So one of the biggest obstacles of cancer treatment is how little we know about our cells. In fact, not all cancer cells from one patient responds to one type of drug or one routine therapy in the same effective way. So that is a problem. So that means cancer cannot be treated as one disease. We think personalized or more precise treatment should be made. Treatment plan should be made based on the more precise information on the cells from each individual patient. Unfortunately, most hospitals are not able to extract that information from their patients in traditional ways. So our value proposition is for diagnostic companies and the cancer research labs who need to evaluate cell behavior for personalized treatment. Our product, Live Drop Chip, is a single cell culturing tool that allows for monitoring treatment responses in real time, unlike traditional cancer diagnostic techniques. So our solution, the solution of our product is to provide more precise information on the cells by monitoring each individual tumor's cancer cell's behavior in real life to provide more precise diagnostics, more informed treatment plans, so of course, better treatment outcomes. So now let me introduce Palin to give us our business model.
So we started this process by looking at our business canvas, filling in those spots, and trying to validate the canvas. And so we did a bunch of customer interviews, and we found that overall in the market that there's a high demand for personalized medicine, a push for new technology within the cancer market, and as far as patients goes, a desire to receive more precise treatment and in order to reduce relapse rate. So we began by looking at the overall biopsy market and then shrunk that down to the tissue biopsy market, which is about roughly half. And then we projected that our market could take about 1% of this tissue biopsy market around 1 year after FDA approval. So we decided on the tissue biopsy market after looking at our competition. So tissue analysis is by far the most used technique in the cancer diagnostic market right now, and that's in part because it's cheap and it's easy to use. But the problem is that it really doesn't give doctors that much information. And now there are techniques that will give you a lot of information, but they're really expensive and really hard to use. So what our product does is capitalizes on this low-cost, user-friendly market, but provides a lot more information, so that way doctors can make more precise diagnoses as well as more precise treatments. So our revenue model, after talking to some people in the field, we decided on a licensing model. So first, we need a patent. We're currently in talks with the RPI Office of Tech Transfer. And then it takes a couple years to get a patent. So during that time, we've outlined a 12-month timeline of what we would do, which I'll talk about later. And then once we get the IP, we would license it, probably exclusive licensure to a big established medical device company like you see here. So kind of going off of that, our marketing strategy would be both a push strategy and a pull strategy. So push, we would push it through the supply chain. We would establish these partnerships with big companies. But then we would also continue to talk to the people who actually use the product and let them know how useful it is, because there is a big back and forth in the cancer market. So our pitch is that we're asking for an investment of around 200 grand. And so what we want this money for is it would cover the cost of prototyping, validation, scientific validation, publications, things of those sorts. And then we would also continue to do business development. So kind of customer discovery like we have been doing, attending conferences, things of those sorts. And then this would happen while we would be pursuing a patent. Of course, after 12 months, we would have to reevaluate, because this technology would have to go through the FDA approval process. We would only need a 510K only. It's still about $20 to $30 million. So of course, this ask does not include that money. So this would be our ask for about a 12-month time. So this is our team. We would like to thank Dr. Mills and Dr. Ligon, and of course our mentor Bruce, and everyone part of the RPI, NSF, everyone in this room, you're all wonderful. We are LiveDrop, where diagnostics is only a drop away. Do you have any questions?
All right, questions? So good, there's no questions.
Thank you, we'll take your money now.
Yeah, who's writing the check?
With your company name, the drop and the drop in the logo, does that have anything to do? Is that part of the test process, or is it diagnostic? Is it a drop of blood, a drop of?
So as we said, this product is still basically, it can be used universally in all the labs, research labs, but our focus is on, basically this is a live single cell monitoring culture tool. So if you want to extract the patient cells, still traditional biopsy procedure has to be done before that.
Well, I think
And yes, so the drop means actually this is the procedure after we So after we get the cells, the patient samples, this is basically how we're going to do this. So this is part of the technology, the drop itself, but it's still solid tumors from patients.
What is the readout? What is the analytical technique that you're using to look at the cell? Are you using a microscope or
Yes.
some spectroscopy?
Yeah, basically, still traditional microscopy, but if you want to look at cells, you have to use the different microscopy technology. But this chip allows for live imaging and keep monitoring the cell progression and the behavior.
So you will be selling the chip and the microscope? Just the chip?
Yes.
Just the chip.
Then just the chip, yes, sorry.
So is that essentially what you're trying to patent or your technology or IPs around whatever is in this chip?
Yes.
That allows you to do something different no one else has figured out?
All right, we gotta wrap it up.
The clicker.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we will do. All right. Letter written.
All right, hello everyone. We are Cybus. I'll explain the name so you don't have to guess. It's basically that in for a meal, nourishment. So you probably guess what I'm talking about in the next few slides. Value proposition. Anyone out there who ever used a breast pump is going to love this. Because in this 21st century, where everything is smart, why didn't anyone develop a smart breast pump? Right? That's what we're all about. Allowing mobility and understanding the science behind a woman's body. A lot of devices don't do that right now. We're integrating this with Alexa, where it will communicate with you for discrete communication, allowing you to pump maximum amount of milk. The app also encourages the necessary diet, water consumption, and even your stress and anxiety levels, because everything is a crucial factor behind milk production. Problem. In our current market, we have these number of parts with these breast pumps. As you see, we have tubing, bottles, flanges, lots of products you have to clean, not to mention assembling or disassembling as well. They're uncomfortable, difficult to use. You have to tie yourself to an outlet for anywhere from 20 to 30 to 45 minutes. You're stuck with an outlet, probably somewhere like that. Target market. Although I would love to have this product used worldwide, but what we're going to start out with is the capital region, right here in Albany. Solution. So instead of a mechanical device, we're trying to create something that fits right into your bra or a tank top, right? Very small device that can initially fit in. And one more thing that we are doing, instead of just a device, is we're going to give you also the matching intimate apparel. So we'll obviously be making partnerships with companies like either say Victoria's Secret or Lane Bryant, so women have choices in terms of what kind of apparel they're looking for. We want to make this more cool and beautiful. Alexa technology, so what that would do, even if you're pumping at work, you have the ability to say, hey, Alexa, let's pump. You don't have to make sound, you don't have to be loud, it can be as discreet as possible. Foods and water consumption, as I mentioned. Based on our interviews, a lot of women had different results. depending on how stressed out they were that day, and in terms of what they had, in terms of what kind of meals that they had that day. Your milk production explains that. So our product will be tailoring and encouraging you to have optimal amount of milk production. This is our prototype. It's basically a device that will open up into the first layer and fit it into one of the bra of your choosing, or a tank top. It can also be used as easy nursing, so it goes both ways. Quickly, the product right here, minimal parts, just one plastic bag inside to hold the milk. You can throw it in the freezer for keeping it frozen, or you can transfer it into the milk. Very easy. Minimal parts, just the tube and the wall. You can wash that. You don't have to wash it every time you use it. Our competition. The monopoly of breast pumps in this industry is Medela, but other players in the market are Spectra, Willow, and obviously us, Cybus. It provided a very basic in terms of what they allow, but in terms of hands-free, convenience for moms, Alexa integration, and two standout factors that we are focusing in on this technology is the quality of milk. Because right now, there's no way to measure that. The quality of milk and your diet. Because all these factors are crucial to mother's milk production. Revenue model obviously would be the direct sale of our product, accessories. It can be the tubing or the valve, let's say you break it or whatever it is, and the little bags. Rental opportunities if anyone doesn't want to have maybe a second child, or they just want to breast pump for a short period of time, whatever it is, we give them the ability to use a rental if needed. Traction and validation. So basically what we want to focus on is really simple. We're going to make partnerships with the suppliers, as I mentioned, and our customer, right? Anywhere from mothers to insurance companies to hospitals or even pharmacies. Key activities: building a product, selling it, and marketing will be huge. That's where our bigger expense is, which I'll talk about in a moment. Since we are competing with Medela in the landscape, which is very competitive, we'll be leveraging social media very heavily. Breastfeeding awareness groups, lactation agencies, insurance companies, pharmacies, and hospitals. We'll be working with all these entities for this. Obviously, I'm the CEO founder of Cybus as Amin, and Simran is my back-end, very strong help in terms of marketing and finance. Investment and use of funds. So what I really am looking for today is not much in the startup world, but only $5 million to spend and develop this product and spend it for marketing. Because as I mentioned, product is a cost, obviously, but marketing will be our biggest expense after the product. Because when you have huge players in the market to compete with, I believe your marketing has to be really strong. And along with other things, FDA approvals, patents, resources, good engineers, things like that, we need the money for. Thank you.
Questions from the crowd?
Yes.
The data that you're collecting about the quality of the milk and their diet and things like that, is that considered medical data? And if it is, do you have to follow medical procedures for that? Or is it kind of external from medical data?
It'll be more external, right? And it's mostly, obviously we'll have set up algorithms in our app and also into the device. So they work with each other in terms of integration. But it'll basically be fed into in terms of what you're consuming throughout the day, and that will derive. Because if you are, I don't know, eating hamburgers and drinking soda, then that's what the kind of you'll get in terms of what the app will tell you. Yes?
I may have missed it. You may have verbalized it or the slide I didn't see. But did you have a market potential, a quantified sense of estimate for the
Right,
market?
so our target market was up until 2024, right here. We're expecting 1.2 billion by 2020, and accessories market, which is huge, is 1.4 billion by 2024. So we see this increasing on, especially on the Asia side, as more women are entering the workforce.
That's your total market. I'm trying to figure out a number then to assess the $5 million ask against.
Okay, so that would be our capital region, right? So let's say I did the basic math as, because I work with New York State, and we have roughly 250,000 people. I'm sure Albany has more than that. But let's say if I were to shoot for 250,000 folks, in terms of, let's say, half of them are women, half of that is pregnant or breastfeeding mothers, then those are the people we're focusing on. Obviously, other women in Albany too, but we'll start out with that number.
Okay.
Do you know what that percentage is of women that actually do breastfeed? If they do, how long?
I don't have the specific number, but many women do, unless they have a health issue. But many women do opt for breastfeeding for at least 1 year worth of time.
All right, we got to keep trucking. Thank you. All right. Figured I'd be clever and stick with a milk theme. How about that? You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute.
All right, so we are Aerodynamics, creating rapid, efficient, and cost-effective detection of bacterial contamination and infection. What's our value proposition? We are for farmers who lose revenue due to contaminated milk from infected cows. Aerodynamics is a diagnostic service that provides fast results of many different diseases and infections. Unlike the current methods, our technology is able to provide results on site within 1 hour, so that's before the cow is milked or before the contaminated milk is mixed with the uncontaminated milk. And that saves millions of gallons of high-quality milk per year. So all these infections can be caused by all of these things in this picture. So as you can see, it's pretty much anything a cow can come in contact with. All right, so the big problem that I'm talking about is mastitis. 30% of dairy cows are killed annually due to this infection. It's really just the swelling of the udder, but it puts bacteria in the milk and then causes contamination or eventually could kill the cow. So $1 billion is lost in milk production. 2.7 billion is lost due to killing cows. This is all just in the U.S. Per year. So just 1% less would save $90 million. Our solution is the detection of pathogens and biological samples based on looking at differences in the RNA panels. So our technology really mapped out the RNA, and it can compare to contaminated or uncontaminated samples, and therefore determine if they have the infection or not. So it is low cost, fast, and reliable. Market opportunity. There are roughly 42,000 dairy farms, just the US. 2,500 of these are organic. We chose organic because they have higher margins, and therefore when you lose milk, there's more money lost. And we chose specifically farms that are smaller than 100. I'll talk about this right now. Okay. Well, these are really cute pictures of farms, the farm that I visited. So I visited a farm in Indiana. It's one of the biggest in the US. They have a lot of precautions in place, have a lot of experience. So the cows sleep on sand beds because it just doesn't allow bacteria to grow in there. They have a really complex milking system. So they clean the udders as they do it, squirt a little bit of milk out. Therefore, they can see if there's any problem. If there's any problem, they do it into a separate bucket. No problem, they finally put the vacuum on. So it's pretty extensive in what they do. They know exactly what they're doing. So we really haven't seen a need for us in these kind of markets. When I talked to them, they said they really haven't had the problem with this. It's really only the smaller farmers who don't go through all of these steps. All right, so competitive analysis. CMT is really a cow side test. So you take the milk, you put it with a detergent in a gel will form based on the somatic cells. But that's a lot of human error just because the gel consistency is really what tells, so you have to be able to tell how thick it is really. Microbiological is done in the lab. It takes 24 to 48 hours to cultivate. It is very scientific, and that is what most co-ops do. Co-ops are really what farmers send their milk to, and the co-ops would like package it and do most of the work with the milk. Electrical conductivity. So a lot of larger farms also do this. It's very, very expensive. It's $200,000 up for one of these machines, but it really just tests for conductivity in the milk, which can signal mastitis. We are aerodynamic, so we have low cost, reliable, fast, portable, and we have minimal training for our product. Roadmap. Right now, we are doing customer discovery. We have validated dairy farmers within this program that we're in, and also currently validating co-ops. Next, we want to develop our MVP. So determining the cost service structure and growing our database. So I talked about we can map out RNA in when we test for milk samples and mastitis, but this also translates to other industries. So we can take maybe a human sample, test it for cancer, HIV, so it translates to all different industries. So once we grow that database, that's what we will be able to do. And next, customer creation, marketing and branding, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We want to sell direct through a sales team. Next, pilot tests with these customers that we created. And lastly, final product development and entry into the dairy industry. And then after that, expand into the different markets that I talked about, like healthcare. Business model canvas, as we have gone through, can't really tell the difference between green and yellow, but co-ops are definitely key partners. Blue is what we are thinking about. The green, which are Dairy Farmer Co-op QA, are ones that we have validated, and the blue are just what we're working on right now. How will we make money? So customers will pay upfront for the equipment. It's just a one-time fee for them. And then we will have recurring revenue just from subscription monthly for using our product and software. And we want to have about one machine per 20 cows just because you can't test many or more than one cow at once. So it'll be more efficient for farmers. So larger farms will have more products of ours. So marketing and sales, we want to develop a list for email marketing. We are driven through our website, which we just put up today. Remarketing ads on social media. So through this email list that we are making, we want to take that, put that into, for example, Facebook, and then it'll target those exact same people, so they'll be seeing it over and over. So it'll be much more specific into our target market. Google Ads is also very important. And since we have search terms that aren't as common, it'll be a lot lower cost than a lot of other campaigns. Referral, obviously, customers telling other customers how great we are. And then lastly, going to different conferences as we've been doing. Okay, investment use of funds. Right now, most importantly, we want to build out the database. Next, develop our MVP for our beta customers. This is going to cost about $200,000, and it'll last us up to 1 year and get us to beta product launch. Lastly, our team, me, Dan and Rick in the back. If you have any questions, you can contact me. Thank you.
Any questiones?
Yeah.
So how are you developing your product that will make it lower cost than the competitors?
Well, really, right now we have like a larger product that we have in a lab, and as we develop our MVP, we want to make it smaller that will give out to customers, and then the software will just really be very low cost for us, and that's really the proprietary technology. Yeah.
Would you need FDA approval for something like this?
Actually, probably. A lot of the market is very segmented, so it goes from dairy farmers, and they are regulated by the co-ops and then the state, and then the FDA. They don't have as stringent as the state, so we're probably going to go with all the state regulations. Yeah.
Did you talk to New York State's Ag and Marketing or the Cooperative Extension about market opportunity and marketing?
The co-op extension, what do you meant Cornell? Or?
Well, it's related to Cornell. It's actually about two buildings left here.
Actually, we tried to contact them, and I also have a meeting set up with Ag and Markets. So.
All righty, thank you. Okay. Now, I promised diversity, so we go from milk and biotechnology to stud finding.
Hey everyone, I'm Tommy Grant. I'm a student here at RPI, as well as Evan and Jesper, my two partners there. And we started a stud sensor that we thought of. Kind of started as an idea that we just had in our heads, and then it kind of gained traction with Quinn here. So this is our presentation. We have two value propositions. One is for contractors and one is for the manufacturers. This first started out as a product that we were going to develop ourselves, manufacture ourselves, and then distribute. But we realized through talking with them that brand loyalty is a huge deal in this industry. So we realized we had to partner with a manufacturer who will sell this for us. So we get a licensing deal. I'll talk about that later in a revenue model. So we have the value proposition for why contractors would want our product and why the manufacturers would want to buy our technology and use it. The problem is the traditional stud sensor. I don't know how many of you have used them before, but there is a handheld machine that you swipe over walls and they beep or light up when you go over a stud or something. And it doesn't tell you what you just went over, it just tells you that there's something behind the wall. So we decided that we make a product that you didn't have to hold and that you could tell the different materials behind the wall. So talking to over 70 contractors in the capital region, we got the user frustrations of what they wanted in a stud finder down to, they said it hurt their fingers going across the sheetrock, poke yourself. Speed is a big one, putting it down, marking it, picking it back up. Marking sheetrock is tough. Sore arms, holding up against the wall the whole time. That's actually true, I've done that before, it stinks. Battery life, they take AA batteries a lot of the time and die out, so we need to change that. And durability, that's always a big thing with construction tools. You drop it once and it breaks, you're out a couple $100. So our solution would be a stud sensor that looks through the wall, tells you what's behind the wall, what is actually behind it, whether it's wiring, copper pipes, studs, whatever it would be. You set it up, it points at the wall, tells you what's behind it, and it marks it with a laser grid so you don't have to mark it yourself. So this helps with all the user frustrations I just explained. And with a rechargeable battery, that would help. Don't have to buy batteries and have longer life on the job site. So our technology was actually hooked up through Clint. We didn't have any at first. Like I said, it was kind of this abstract idea, but it ended up being plasma antenna technology. And from what we understand of it, the guy is kind of a strange dude, but it's pretty much an antenna, but instead of a wire, it's like fluorescent tubing, and it sends a signal up and down it and sends out the wave. So this wave can go through drywall, cinder block, pretty much anything. And this graph shows the blue is our plasma antenna, and that's how much more focus it can go through stuff. So it paints a picture of what you can see behind the wall compared to the typical radar technology, whatever they're using currently. Our target market, an opportunity for us, would be one of the big tool manufacturers. Like we said, at first we were going to sell it ourselves to contractors and remodelers, but we realized that the brand loyalty to get into stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, where someone's actually going to take it off the shelf, wouldn't be there from just an abstract name like ours. So we needed to partner with them, and this kind of made things easier for us because we took class with Clint. He told us the best exits and early exits, so you make money right away. So we can get out early. We can partner with somebody and license with them. And we've only talked to so far Stanley Black & Decker, who owns DeWalt and a bunch of other tool manufacturing companies, and they own about 15% of the global tool market. And that map is actually where all their factories are in the United States. So we actually know that they can do the job for us, and we've been talking to them about a royalty deal. Bruce is actually our mentor for business, and he explained to us that once we explained the product to them, they started developing it themselves. So we're kind of in a race with them now, our own partners. So that's a mistake we made, but I guess you gotta learn as you go. Competition, like I said, patent competition is on right now. They're developing the same exact thing. I'm not sure if they had this idea before us or after us, but after I talked to them, they explained how their tool is pretty much exactly the same as ours. Post-royalty deals, Stanley Black & Decker has a ton of competitors, or we could partner with any of them once we start trying to open up different channels to them. So those would be the competitors for them. Our revenue model would be to patent it out and get a licensing deal. We're talking to Stanley Black & Decker. They said 3 to 7% is normally what they look at for a royalty deal, which is kind of a good deal for us, kind of on the higher end for the industry. And they look for $4.7 million in the first year from that product. So if they're going to use it, they're going to have to see a prototype, they're going to have to make sure it works, and they're going to have to know that it's going to make that much money. So that's the only way they put the tool out into the market, and that way we get an early exit and can make some money. Our findings from customer discovery, this is all as I just went over. We talked to 70 plus contractors. But the main thing we learned from this was brand loyalty. It kind of changed the direction we went with this project. And it was kind of something we didn't expect, but it ended up working out for us. Speaking with them, I've said all this too, they're the biggest one. We want to work with them, but now they're kind of making the same thing, so we're in trouble a little bit. Hopefully we can get the technology down and maybe get a little smarter too, and not tell people our secrets before we make things. This is our team. It's me and my two partners. This is Clint right there. He's not the mad scientist. Ted is, even though he looks like
Right,
that.
I look kind of crazy there.
Yeah. Our marketing and sales strategy. Basically, the way it works in the tool manufacturing business is that you develop a relationship with the contractor. So certain contracting companies will have certain relationships with different manufacturers. So one contractor will have a relationship with Stanley Black & Decker, and Stanley Black & Decker will give them first looks at new products. So a prototype that hasn't come out yet, they'll give it to them, let them use it, and then if they like it, they give them feedback, and in turn, they get to keep the tools for free or buy them at a discounted price. So we would have to develop a prototype, give it to these contractors, see if it actually works, because it's a lot different doing it in a lab or doing it here at school compared to on the job site. And hopefully, once we get that, we can tell them that it works and it's a good product, and they'll pay us. Investment is also through Clint. He helped us out with this. $200 grand should help us with the patent, get everything together, develop a prototype that we can show them. Right now, all we have is pretty much our idea, but we have the technology, so we're trying to develop the patent right now. And we just need the financing to get to the licensing deal, and then we should be all set. That's all I got.
All right. Questions from the crowd?
Yeah.
You confused me a little bit on the patent protection. Did you say that there are other companies already developing something similar?
We're not sure what the technology they're using is. They're just trying to develop the same product as us, because the actual plasma antenna technology that we're planning to use, the patent is owned by Clint's friend. So, and he said that we can use it because it's been sitting on the shelf for a while. So we have patent technology for our personal technology, but they're developing something different right now. Yep.
So when you say that DeWalt is in a patent race with you guys, did you guys give them the idea of the more functional stud finder or the plasma?
It's the more functional stud finder, because I don't think to the consumer it doesn't really matter what the actual technology is, it's just the convenience of it. So if they have some sort of technology that's going to do the same thing as ours, and they develop a patent around that, our technology to them is useless, so we won't be able to sell it.
All right, thanks. There we go. Let's do that. Why not? Surprise you.
Yeah, hold on. Is this the, are there pictures in this one here? Yeah, no, this is not the one I wanted. When did you retrieve this?
5 minutes before we started.
Really?
Yeah.
No, sorry about that. It's just...
Is it on Dropbox?
Yeah. So, should be the PowerPoint. No, the...
Is this one?
No, the other one.
This one.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I don't know. Can you scroll down and see if there's pictures? Yeah, this is it. All right. Sorry about that.
Hang on. Let me get it to view mode.
Oh, no, it's all right.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Pretty good? How about that food?
Yeah.
Pretty good, right?
All good.
I wish I had some good jokes to say. All right, here we go.
All right, thank you all. My name is Carl Pell, and we are a digital asset view. We're a cryptocurrency company to help traders make their lives convenient when trading cryptocurrency.
Go.
Right there. So our value proposition is essentially this. We make it cheaper and easier for cryptocurrency traders to go from the US dollar to whatever currency they want, whether it be Bitcoin, whether it be some other cryptocurrency on a different market, or some obscure cryptocurrency that's being run by. The other value proposition that we have is to connect cryptocurrency traders with the blockchain community. I'm not sure if you know what blockchain is, but it's essentially the people who deal with the Bitcoin and the Ether. It's the people who provide value and create like file systems or other cool technologies around it. So let me tell you the story of Bob the Trader, as I like to call him. The way Bob the Trader works now is he has to go first online to a cryptocurrency exchange, Exchange One, and for whatever cryptocurrency he wants, he generally needs to go buy Bitcoin. So he's got to go through this whole complicated process of converting the US dollar to the Bitcoin, and then if he wants to, get another currency, some other one out there, he generally needs to convert the Bitcoin from that exchange he got it from, so like Coinbase, then bring it to another exchange, whatever that is, and then buy that cryptocurrency, and then he gets to transfer it back to wherever it was. Bob the Trader could be somebody who just is an investor in it and sees technology. He could be somebody who could be like a Netflix who wants to buy something called Filecoin to store their videos on for their users. Whatever it is, this is his process right now. And also too, many people like you may not know, hey, what do all these coins do? Are these actually good coins over here? Because these are pictures of like the different cryptocurrencies. Well, Bob really doesn't know either. So he's got to go figure that out. And how he figures it out now is he pays a developer $1,000 an hour, that was a direct quote from a trader, to look at all the code, look at the ecosystem of that particular project and say, this is good, this is bad. We want to get rid of that. All right. So the target opportunity for this is tremendous. According to the 24-hour volume on 3/19, which was just a couple days ago, that was 17.5 billion, which adds up to 6 trillion plus a year. It's probably a lot more than that, but this is just the amount of volume traded. And then ICOs, which are initial coin offerings, which are kind of like IPOs, but with coins, the cryptocurrencies, that was another 1.27 billion. So the solution, instead of Bob going to 2 different exchanges, instead of Bob trying to figure out, okay, how do I get my US dollars, whatever, what's the conversion rate, am I getting the best rate? He comes to us, the one-stop shop, where we have an online platform that allows you to convert your US dollars to the cryptocurrency for whatever purpose you want, whether it be long-term investment, whether it be because you need to pay for a service that you're using. It doesn't matter. We deal with it from US dollar to whatever, and you, the trader, no worries. We have blockchain experts also to be able to rate the crypto community and the crypto projects, as I like to call them, to say this one's good, this one's bad, these ones have met their goals, these ones maybe are struggling. Sort of like you get with stock ratings. You have like expert investors come in and do that. Not too many people do that, some do, but not too many, and I'll get into that later. And it just really helps connect investors with the projects that are providing the value for the community. Such as one example is being able to store files on different people's computers. So the competition, and really I'll tell you about 2 that I found that I thought were the most interesting. Thomson Reuters essentially provides Bitcoin sentiment, and they provide kind of information about how the Bitcoin community is going, how different communities are going. And so they're more like the data feed. They're able to kind of give you, this is a good project, this is a bad project, and the ups and downs of that. There's also something called Robinhood, which is essentially a online trading platform that is supposed to make it easier for you to trade US dollars to Bitcoin, or other currencies, but it's very limited right now, so we want to try to make that more expansive. There's also different kind of arbitrage and trading platforms out there that will allow you to kind of trade for your coins, but people really don't want to go into that complexity. They really just want to convert their dollars to their coin. The revenue model right now could be a mix of subscriptions for providing value to users. It could be a mix of arbitrage by taking advantage of pricing between the multiple different currencies. You could even have trading options to allow people to set at a fixed price, even though it may not quite be there. And it could be just advertisements. So we provide value in providing sentiment for a different community or a different coin or Bitcoin, we can potentially advertise that. So the traction and validation roadmap. So we spoke to about 40 different customers, and right now we really need to talk with more people in the blockchain community and more investors. We believe that what we're doing is the right path, but we need to talk more about how we can connect these communities together. The blockchain community, the traders, figure out how we provide value there, and we also need to figure out what is more convenient for the traders. So we believe we're getting on the right track, and it really took us 30 interviews to get there, 30, 35 interviews. So that's really on our roadmap right now, to talk to more people, maybe get to 60 interviews. The marketing and sales strategy, what we found out was the best way of doing it was to directly reach out to the communities themselves, because unlike a doctor, you know where a doctor is, he's in a hospital. A firefighter is in the firehouse, traders in the stock market. Where do you go to find cryptocurrency traders? They're not necessarily in the stock market, and it's really mom or dad. It could be just people interested in it. It could be a variety of different people. So it's really difficult to find, like, this is a place to go unless you actually reach out and go to these events or these places that are designed directly for this community. The team, myself, my academic lead, Robert Brathy, Rick Neff actually helped me out quite a lot, and Matthew Cusack, who I didn't put on here, is also my mentor. So investments and use of funds, we plan to build an MVP. We think it's going to cost $100,000 to do that right now. That's just for developers, and eventually as we reach out, potentially $250,000 for that. So without further ado, does anybody have any questions for me? Yes.
Are there any sort of legal liabilities that you might be facing as someone that's the intermediary between someone's money and like potentially fake cryptocurrencies that your company will have to be worried about?
Yes, it's definitely a risk. There is a lot of regulation going on right now. And there's different approaches you can take. We might need to set up in certain places that are more crypto friendly. So that could help us out, but that's definitely a risk. The regulatory risk is very high. Yes.
So is it fair to say you're trying to be a conversion calculator and Morningstar combination? Is that a way to characterize it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. In the back, yes.
So I have a cousin who told me to buy Ethereum about a year and a half ago, who's now making a lot of money on it. So I got about halfway through making a Bitcoin wallet, and I gave up on it. So
yeah.
Is your target customer me or my cousin?
So right now, we are looking more for bigger traders, but it could very well be you, but I think it'd be more your cousin at this point. Okay. So someone who maybe is more familiar, but we also want to make it easy too. Like, you don't need your own personal wallet with our platform. You could just do it yourself, like log in with an account, and boom, you have your Bitcoin. So yeah, so that's the way we see it right now. Any other questions? Yes.
Are you doing services for mining coin or just trading?
Right now it's just trading, but that's a good point, good opportunity to explore as well.
All right, we got to keep trucking. And I just realized if you look down the floor, we have Bitcoin carpet. You just realized that right now. Squiggle, you guys, or Quiggle. It's not Squiggle. Quiggle, let's go. All right.
Hello, thanks for coming in today. We are Quiggle, two of us. So when you look at this picture, what do you see?
Business cards.
Business cards. A mess. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on this? Okay. So when we looked at this picture, and these cards are in my bag right now, right? When we looked at this picture, we were like, okay, what's going on here? Two things jumped out at us, right? The first thing is that connecting with people still remains a huge problem. Business cards are a multi-million, almost $1 billion industry which is trying to solve this issue. Connecting with people when we meet them in person continues to be a significant problem. What else does this picture represent? I have all these cards, I've stored them away, and I'm not going to pull them out anytime soon. Most importantly, I'm not going to be able to access them when I need them, right? So what this really represents is missed opportunities. Missed opportunities for individuals to connect with individuals, to make their lives easier. Missed opportunities for businesses to connect with individuals, to conduct business. Every day, people are missing out on opportunities to connect with each other and businesses to connect with their customers and stakeholders. This is the problem we are here to solve. So, Quiggle is a mobile application that lets individuals and businesses connect with others in an efficient, scalable manner. It helps people keep the information organized and updated, and it helps people use that information when you need it. So our MVP is out, and I'll tell you what it does in a second. Basically, we are enhancing connectivity between people. We are providing the ability to capture information, store it, and retrieve it when you need it. At the end of the day, what does this do? It saves cost, time, and energy in terms of contacting people, but more importantly, it creates opportunities. It creates value. So it's both a productivity tool as well as a tool that creates value for businesses. What is the problem? To kind of unpack this further, connecting with all of you today continues to be a problem. It's a slow, time-consuming process. Part of the problem is that we all carry cell phones, mobile phones, but they don't transfer information directly between each other, right? So what do we end up doing? Well, we use business cards. We try to pull up LinkedIn, right, and find each other. We try to, type in phone numbers and message, right? It's basically many, many steps. It's very cumbersome. So likely, we will not end up connecting with many of us amongst ourselves today. And there are huge opportunities being missed because of that, right? And so this is a real problem that we went around and we asked many people, and we validated it amongst a whole group of people, a whole cross-section of the population. The students loved it, school students loved it, college students loved it. We also found a high degree of validation amongst people who network for their living, such as HR professionals, such as salespeople, such as fundraisers, such as event organizers, and in general, we found a lot of validation amongst people in general, right? We're in no mood to burn our personal money. We found good validation with our MVP, therefore we feel confident about going ahead with this. What are our target audience? Since we want to really gain traction here with people who are likely to use it frequently, on the one hand, we're going to target people who are early adopters, who are willing to adopt our technology, such as younger students. On the other hand, we also want to target businesses and the professionals that we described to you, who are also likely to be paying us. What is our solution? If you haven't already seen it, it's basically a QR code and a scanner that comes with the app that is given to everybody. If you just fire it up, what you will see is something that looks like this. So there is a scanner, there's a QR code, everybody gets that. If you have the app, I have the app, I scan you. With one scan, there's a two-way exchange of contact information. So we are instantly connected. You can connect with everybody in this room, probably in 10 minutes, right? Here's the other beauty, and this is the scalable part. If you put up your QR on the screen, everybody can scan you through Quiggle and connect with you in instants. So it becomes a very powerful way for businesses as a medium of connection and exchange. We have our competition, AirDrop, which is one way to connect people, but is open to spam. CamCard, which digitizes business cards, but doesn't facilitate connectivity. QR code scanners, we are not a QR code scanners. We connect people. We are not taking people someplace when they scan the QR code, right? And there are other solutions that are out there that are very cumbersome in terms of exchanging contact information. Revenue model, what we want to do is, we have an MVP out. We want to create a model for consumers, an app for consumers, and one for enterprises and businesses, so that they can exploit this, mass scale connectivity. They can put up their QR codes in, public places and have hundreds of thousands of people scan them and connect with them. So that is our paying side. This is our free side, right? Here are a whole bunch of numbers. We validated this in many, many contexts with many, many people. And so those are some numbers that show you that. We want to market this actively. Social media is going to play a huge role in this. We want to do things like reach our targeted audience through things like LinkedIn groups, etc. We want to also do YouTube videos, app competitions, and so on and so forth. All the channels available for app marketing. This is Shivantika. She is the CEO. I'm Shyam, Chief Strategy Officer. We are very passionate about solving this problem. We pretty much had it with that first slide that we showed you, right? We are building our team. We've had extremely good advice with Rob Nichols. It was a pleasure working with him. We are also currently working with a high-quality developer who shall, I wonder who that is, Troy Wett, who's been an invaluable partner for us as we go through this. We want to $50,000. We think it'll get us to revenue positive. We want to build a consumer app, complete out our MVP and build a consumer app. We want to build an enterprise app. We want to build our technical team. We'd like a technical person, co-founder, to work with us. We want to hire a marketing person who's savvy in social media marketing. We want the money also for patent protection. We want to build good IP so that we build barriers to imitation. That's pretty much it. This is an example of how you can connect. Like yesterday after Startup Tech Valley, everybody put up their contact information, which was very difficult to kind of note down and make note of, right? If you scan this through Quiggle, all of you get connected with Shivantika in half a second. That's the value proposition.
Any questions?
Questions.
Go ahead.
So what's to prevent a massive company like LinkedIn from just imitating this, right? I mean, the QR scanning is not patented. You don't have a patent on that. So what's to prevent them from just sort of copying that and implementing it in an already existing structure?
Well, we want to stay ahead of LinkedIn, develop this, gain traction, have the brand out there, Quiggle, so everybody associates, contact sharing and connecting with Quiggle.
Yeah. So I get the first slide because that's I have testicles like that. But what I was looking for, what I was trying to get my head around was some quantification of the value. So is it time saved? What is the one thing that Quiggle does better than those other competitive apps that you mentioned, and how does that translate to how you're going to monetize?
So actually, one thing is difficult. There are many things. One of the big things is that we are cross-platform. Android and iOS don't talk to each other. Quiggle does. So people with Android, I mean, in the space of networking, there should be no platform. Networking should transcend platforms. Should be able to universally network with whoever you want to. Quiggle enables that. So that is one, huge one. The other big thing is
you can just step back like this and connect. You can just do this,
right,
and you can connect.
I get it.
We're connected.
So in the slide, though, I mean, just a suggestion. If you said the average road warrior, and I'm just picking one of the demographics that you validated, would say X number of minutes, hours a week, and that's worth whatever, and that's how that's why they would pick it over this, and this is how it justifies my subscription price. Then that would resonate with you.
For everybody to connect with each other, absolutely, right? How long would it take?
So that's what the other thing is. That huge problem is that connecting with people is still a one by one process. There is no broadcast of connectivity happening. This lets you broadcast that. So one person to many and many to one. Otherwise, we still go around, whether we're exchanging business cards or taking down phone numbers in our telephone, it's still a one-to-one or one-by-one.
It's both a productivity tool as well as a value creating tool.
This scales it.
That's.
Thanks.
So what exactly are you sharing on this? Is it just in a connection on the app, or do you share like LinkedIn? Email?
Download the app and check it out. You can share. You can complete your profile very nicely with all kinds of information. Add your LinkedIn profile, add your Facebook profile. On Android, you can add Twitter. So when I scan you, I get all that information. Boom, boom, boom. I can just connect with you on different platforms.
So, quick, easy answer. It has full integration with many apps that people already use. Quiggle is in the back end integrated with a lot of other apps. So once you download Quiggle, you have one single screen from where you can access all your other apps without individually opening those other apps.
All right, we got to keep rolling. Catch Quiggle after this. There's plenty of Quiggle to go around. They'll be hanging out. All right, what do we want to do? Let's do On Track. Yeah, okay, gotcha. All right.
Hi everyone, my name's Alagu.
I'm Angela.
And we're here to talk to you about On Track. I think many of us are probably familiar with the traditional schooling system, whether that's public school, private school, homeschooling, variety of schooling systems, but something many of us probably haven't given too much thought about is hospital education. So there's a whole section of the population, kids who are chronically ill or have serious injuries, that are pulled out of school for an extended period of time and hospitalized and actually are expected to keep up to a relative degree with their academic progress and their social progress during that period of time. What typically happens right now is the child has their regular school teacher and their parent, of course, but this new person, this hospital educator that works through a hospital and a public school district, also enters this child's education system. And all three of these people have to coordinate, communicate, and provide a quality education for that child that still fits in with their healthcare plan as well. We took a deeper look at these hospital educators and what they do, and this is kind of what we found as a breakdown of how they spent their time. So they're kind of grayed out right now, but does anyone have any guesses as to where they spend their time with their students, actually teaching them? Which of these blocks it might be? All right. It actually is that 7% right there is actually in service. So that little green chunk, the smallest part of the pie chart. The rest of it is in consultation with their teachers, it's in prep time, travel time to and from their home school districts, or their school, their particular school district that they're paid by. So a ton of administrative tasks and not that much time that they're actually spending in consultation. So what we have is a product with a value proposition that is for hospital educators that want to manage their time more efficiently. It's a web-based platform that integrates communication between educators, school teachers, parents, and students, unlike existing learning management systems do. The main problem that we identified is that there are millions of children in the United States that are hospitalized every year and pulled out of school for extended periods of time, which leads to poor retention rates. So one study found that cancer patients, actually 20% of them, 1 in 5, have to end up repeating a grade, which is enormously expensive for school districts across the country. And it also, especially for younger children, it does lead to problems with emotional and psychological development as well. So for really young kids, the act of being in school and communicating with peers actually facilitates a lot of psychological development. These hospital educators are overburdened with their administrative tasks, and they don't have enough time to dedicate to their students specifically. We identified a total market size of the 13,506 school districts in the United States. But of course, we do need to identify our target market first. So that would be the schools that have existing hospital programs. That's the school districts in the country that have these large pediatric hospitals. Typically at universities, there's about 230 across the country. And they are centered more around urban areas. So New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Boston, etc. We are currently working with New York City hospital schools. They actually serve about 1.1 million students annually from multiple home school districts. So children that are from Connecticut, New Jersey, end up in a hospital in New York City for a severe illness or injury, and they actually enter the New York City school system through this hospital school program. I'm going to introduce Angela to talk a little bit about our solution. She's our main developer.
Sure. So we are developing a web platform, and it will help the pediatric hospitalized patients maintain their academic and social goals while going through treatment. And so it helps them when they're trying to re-enter school later. So what we have so far, this is a prototype that's available online. And here we have the parent view. So one of the people that interacts with the child during their care is obviously the parent. And so they're able to schedule social activities with the students' classmates, and that goes around their appointments currently, so they're able to do that. And for example, oh, let's say I want to go see Lion King with my child, and we're inviting 3 of her classmates, so that is an example. And then the teacher also interacts with the student. So the teacher is able to upload various things that are assigned in school. And given that the patient may not have enough energy to complete all the assignments, there's given a top priority. And this also interacts with the current core curriculum. And so being able to combine that with what the student is able to do. And then the student view is very interactive for the student. We want to make it seem like a virtual classroom, so they're able to collect stars for each assignment. They're able to see the assignments on the laptop, and they're able to go outside and hang out with their friends. And it will show the various activities coming up for the student. So as you can see, here again is the hospital educators, what they spend their time doing. And as you can see, that 7% we want to hone in on and make it so that on track allows them to spend more than just 7% of their time with the patients.
The main competition that we have right now with the existing learning management systems, so if you think of Blackboard or Schoology, Schoology kind of does corner the market on that K through 12 space. But what sets us apart from our current competitors is that learning management systems, particularly for K through 12, are not meant to replace education entirely. They're meant more to supplement and kind of go along with it. So for a kid that's actually pulled out of school, especially for a 7, 8-year-old, you can imagine they're not just going to log into Schoology and do a worksheet by themselves. The second two here are more barriers to entry. So right now, school districts have a lot of administrative requirements set forth by their district or the Department of Education that they have to follow. As well as traditional classroom procedures that they already use. So if this platform were to interrupt or add another layer onto their already many tasks that they are required to do legally, they're hesitant to adopt something like this particularly. Our revenue model right now would be a subscription model that's per student. And we're still in talks with various hospital school programs to try to identify if an annual subscription or a one-time subscription per student is more preferable to the hospitals, or sorry, to the school systems. And ideally, we would like to have this paid for by the hospital school programs, which are a subsidiary of larger school districts themselves. Our marketing strategy is to start by working with large school, hospital school programs, such as New York City, to build a pilot and actually test the platform with one particular school district and then expand that to other programs as well. It's a bit of a slower rollout model, but like I said, each district has different requirements and administrative obligations that teachers need to fill. So we need to make sure that our platform is optimized and as tailored to that particular teacher as possible so that it's not adding extra work for them during the day. Through the I-Core program, we were actually able to validate some sections of our business model canvas. So we actually added child life specialists as a key partner to help with that psychological and social development for them. We also identified that our hospital school programs would be a key partner for what we're doing, and they'd actually be the main customer as well. And the parents, hospital educators, school teachers, and students would actually end up being users. And we also identified that existing LMS platforms could end up being a key resource if we can somehow figure out a way to facilitate and integrate with LMS platforms that schools are already using. This would make it much easier for teachers. The next things we need to validate really is the subscription model as a revenue stream and also identify the pricing point for it based on existing digital prescriptions and existing LMS platforms that schools are willing to pay for. Our investment ask right now is $100,000 over 6 months, and this is mainly to help us develop the platform, build more artificial intelligence or gamification into it so the platform actually adapts to the student as they go through. As well as to hire an educational consultant that helps us navigate the public school administrative system. It's a very, very complicated system that varies from state to state. So we would need more additional help to actually go through that. And it would cover things like salaries, domain name, maintenance, development, etc. This is our whole team at Mount Sinai, as well as here at RPI. A big thanks to Clint and Kelly and everyone who put on the RPI program, as well as Keith and Dr. Janice Gabrilev, our mentors for this program. Thank you.
Questions?
1 million student number, was that the number of students that actually in a hospital program in New York City, or
In
that
New
was
York
the
City.
universal?
So that's in New York City. So New York City is
It's all the
actually,
students that go to.
it's pretty unique in New York City because they've got Columbia Presbyterian, they've got Mount Sinai, Memorial Sloan Kettering, Montefiore, and the Bronx. So they've got a ton of hospitals.
Right.
NYU Langone Medical Center. So since they have a bunch of pediatric hospitals, the number of students that actually enter all of those hospitals is 1.1 million, and they enter the New York City hospitals.
Just one quick question. On your platform, so is part of your differentiator, whatever that administrative paperwork that schools have to do, they do that through your system?
Yeah, it would do
Or
that
like
through
the blackboards and
exactly,
wouldn't do
yeah. As you can imagine, those 1.1 million, they come from probably hundreds of districts from across the Northeast region when they end up in New York City. So each one has a different LMS that they use. So this platform ideally would communicate with all of those LMS systems, making it easier for the hospital educator so that they don't have to learn 10 different LMS platforms.
But wouldn't every state, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was curious how you plan to monetize this.
So right now, the ideal would be to have the hospital educational programs actually pay for this per student that they use it for. When we talked to New York City, one of the things that they had mentioned that we'd like to explore more is to have it be subsidized by the child's home district as well, so that New York City doesn't have to take on the whole cost of educating a child that isn't from their home district. So I say a child is coming in from Connecticut, they're partially paid for by New York State education, partially paid for by Connecticut education as well, so sharing the cost that way.
All right, we're gonna keep rolling. All right, let's keep with a hospital theme. And let's get, let's do this one. Get a few already med teams up here. So before we even get started on this one, I would like to thank Amy Johnson from the Back Academy for funneling some top-notch students our way for the part of this program. So thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity, Clint. I'm going to talk about a device which we want to use in the operating room to prevent an embolism from happening in the OR. My name is Sridhar Musiku. I'm an anesthesiologist by occupation. I work at Albany Medical Center. I deal with mainly cardiac and major vascular patients who come for major operating room surgeries. The main problem what we face in one of the specific surgery is kidney cancer. As you see here, the kidney cancer invades the vein which connects to the heart. Depending upon the level of the tumor, it is graded from 1 to 4. So being this, when the patients come for this type of surgery, and surgeons are, during the operation, when the surgeons are operating, there is a risk of this tumor breaking down, and it may go into the heart and block the heart to completely stall the blood flow, and patient may get killed. So what do we do currently to prevent this problem? If the tumor is in the grade 4, we obviously open the chest. But if the tumor is in grade 2 or grade 3 or grade 1, surgeons normally expect that this tumor will come out en masse, that is in total when they pull it from the lower part of the incision there. So obviously patients are at risk for embolism in the operating room, and we face these situations in the OR. What I'm here to talk about is a device which we want to design, which we can place it like a central venous catheter. It is less invasive, and it prevents the embolism from happening in the operating room. So how does the tumor travel from the veins into the lungs and block the blood flow? I would like to show you 3 videos. This is how the tumor, the clot from the leg veins travels from the lower part of the body into the heart, and it can block the lungs, obviously stalling the blood flow completely on the right side. And the blood flow will not go on the left side, so patient will be affected with that. Second, I would like to show a simulated real-life scenario in the operating room. I hope you'll be able to hear the sound. This we created to show exactly what happens real life in the operating room and how we function. The heart, it all starts with heartbeat. We monitor the heart using the echocardiogram. This is a normal heart with no clot. Once the clot happens, it accumulates in the right side. Heart starts beating faster, and then we hear a beep. This is how usually we see when the embolism happens. It is drastic within minutes, and I just want to let this play again. hard part for me, I believe, once these things happen, is to go and deliver the bad news to the family. And that's why we wanted to come up with a solution, which is a minimally invasive device. I'll explain how that works. We think the solution is not out there, and we researched. There is no device available to prevent right now for these type of surgeries. There are other devices. I'll talk about the competition in the further slides. This is how our device works. Kidney tumor into the major part of the vein. We insert our M block from the neck. By an external control, the filter and the blocker deploys during that at that junction, and it stops the tumor from coming into the heart. So this is the whole concept what I'm working on in the past 4 to 5 months, and I've met a lot of good people who can help me out. External control, and then internal deployment blocking the tumor in that area. So the value proposition, I would say, is it's a less invasive device that provides protection from embolism in the operating room. Unlike other devices in the market which are existing, IVC filter or angiodynamics, they are much more invasive and they are used for palliative purposes. So for all surgeons and anesthesiologists who want to prevent embolism in the operating room, this will be helpful to prevent these complications in the operating room. So what have we done so far? I participated in the ICORPS and I presented in the BSCC Academy before. We have surveyed many physicians, anesthesiologists like me, cardiac anesthesiologists, cardiologists, and radiologists, and we have taken input from them. There is no device currently there in the market. That's what we learned. And some of the concerns what they mentioned, we noted it down, and I think our device, if it is developed right, it will be solving the problem. The second most important step, which we are yet to do, is the ex vivo and in vivo studies. It can be done using vascular models, which are available with some companies, and the in vivo or the animal studies, which we can do at Albany Medical Center. We are actually currently applied for the grant, and we are applying for the animal study at Albany Medical Center. So market estimation-wise, there are the 2 conditions we want to target. Kidney tumor is one of the most common cancer in males and females. DVT and blood clot, it is also a very common condition. The total cases around 70,000 cases per year, and 6 to 12% of the cases travel into the vein. And 2 million cases of DVT, even if we capture around 1% of the market, our patients will be benefited for DVT and clots as well. The competition-wise, there is a local company named AngioDynamics. I've used this type of device with the surgeons and radiologists. It's for palliative use. It is much more invasive, and the patient has to be placed on bypass, partial bypass, where the blood is diverted. And the IVC filter, it is for long-term usage, and it does not, it actually allows the tumor cells to pass through the filter. So it is not used for this type of surgeries. I think our device solves multiple problems, less invasive, and it is for short-term intraoperative use to prevent this issue. The revenue model, field reps, the patients will contact the surgeons first, so field reps will be the main people who will be contacting the surgeons. M-block device sales, in that way, normally the device, these sort of devices cost around $6,000 to $8,000. Currently we use some of the devices which for different purpose, similar make. Those cost around $6,000 to $8,000. We think we can make money out of that. And licensing wise, we would like to partner with a bigger company, Boston Scientific or AngioDynamics, to develop this product and see what they will suggest. We have a provisional patent applied, and we are trying to see if it is a utility patent is possible. A limited utility patent is possible for this. That is what the indications we are getting from the patent attorneys. Marketing wise, again, publications, multi-institutional studies are needed for this type of study to increase the credibility. And meetings and presentations and journal articles, that's what the physician-to-physician information as well will be helpful in marketing. So I've learned a lot about business model canvas. I'm a physician by occupation, and more importantly, common man who want to prevent complications in the operating room. I want the patients to be safe. I've learned a lot about how to identify users. In my case, users and customers are different. Users will be physicians like me. Customers will be insurance companies who pay money for this sort of device, and each and every procedure has a code. For this type of device, if it is coded in the medical system, it will be around $6,000 to $8,000. We have established quite a few relationships with surgeons. And more importantly, I applied for grants, and we are applying for animal lab studies. And prototyping wise, we have a person in Troy who can help us out with that. And so we can get a local prototype for around $1,500 for each prototype. So the roadmap, we have already, I told you, patent, we have provisional patent, we applied for funds. We are looking for a limited utility patent, collaboration with other institutions. When I go for the meetings, I've spoken to many institutions, colleagues who were my friends from Cleveland Clinic. They also face the same problem. And studies are critical for validating this type of concept. So the needs and goals, I think for 10 to 12 functional prototypes, we would require around $18,000, which will allow us to do ex vivo testing and in vivo testing in animals. $20,000 for ex vivo testing, around $75,000 for animal study. And the later part, FDA application, which will require more money for this type of concept. This is my team. Elliot Green is one of the co-innovator. Jack Chan is the medical student who is helping me out, and he's here. Thad Casey for prototyping is based in Troy, and I have mentors in animal labs who will be helping with studies. Thank you very much, Clint and Kelly, for organizing this, and thank you, Amy, for referring to this program. Any questions I can take?
I think it will help to estimate your market size, but
Yeah.
basically, what do you expect to do?
If I go back to the slide from the market size point of view, I would say that 6 to 12% of the cases of these tumor cases go into the vein. Roughly, it will come around 2,800 to 7,000 cases per year in that range. This is in America.
So if you put a dollar value on that, what kind of dollar value is it?
I was thinking it's too premature for the dollar value, but when we calculated for the BSCC presentation, it came out to around $40 million for the market size available in America. And there are other countries where the problem is bigger because of the population aspect. So we may be able to scale up in Europe and other places.
These are single-use items?
These are single-use items, yes. It's similar to a center line, which is placed in the groin or the neck. And they're mostly there for around 24 to 48 hours for the duration of the procedure and later as well.
All right, thank you. All right, I had a request for Colin to come up next because he's got to go up and get a test up at RPI. So, switch it up. Why am I not?
Could you get up the drive?
Yeah. There's your remote.
Just gonna text the folks that I'm presenting.
You need an online learning system.
I know. Hello everyone, I hope everyone's having a good night. My name is Colin Danhe and I'm representing Storage. Now a lot of companies and organizations want to make renewable initiatives, but when they look at the economics of it, these massive installations that they would have to undertake just aren't feasible for them. So our value proposition is that we are providing a software platform analyzing storage and excess energy production and management for these municipalities and their customers in order for them to cut costs for their customers and their overall energy planning, as well as to create new revenue streams for power usage in their operations. So Joe is at the Schenectady Municipal Power Organization, and he tries to keep his customers in his base without having them go to the investor-owned utilities. And one of the common complaints that
that he receives is that the customers have this demand charge on their bill that doesn't have anything to do with the actual energy that they're using. It's just an additional fee at a certain time of the day. And there are solutions such as battery storage and renewable production that can help these customers reduce the cost. But like I just said, these systems are too heavy of an initial cost. No one's going to really want to pay $20,000, $30,000 for a system that's going to save them like $100 a month. So, like I was saying, the demand charges can be found on a national grid bill here, and they account for about $140 out of a $500 monthly electric bill. And in looking at the market for trying to respond to these demand charges and related services, it's projected at $1.5 billion within the past year, but it's expected to grow to $2 billion within the next 4 years. And we are looking to be a niche player for municipalities in responding to demand charges. And our initial target customers are cities that have smart grid and smart city initiatives and already installations, such as Schenectady and Saratoga Springs, which serve about 50 to 80 commercial and industrial customers. So what our solution does is it takes all the information that is gathered by the solar panels, battery systems, and smart meter infrastructure. We analyze it on our platform, given current energy prices and historical uses and pricing schemes for energy and power. And we actually recommend solutions to our customers, not only to cut their bill, but also to route energy and power for energy intensive applications, which brings them in more revenue. So this is a very hot market with the amount of spending that's going on. And there are large industrial players like GE who have systems that do all the analysis and actually have insight for the energy and power dispatchers. There are smaller companies like SunVerge and Enbala who do provide insight and savings for the customer. And we offer all these features, but what sets us apart is that we are recommending revenue generating new income streams with these communities' excess power capabilities for these energy intensive applications. So what our revenue stream would be the portion of the energy savings that the municipal customers would then be able to cut off their bill, as well as savings in infrastructure spending from the actual municipalities and community choice agreements. And whenever we would recommend a new system upgrade, we would look to obtain a portion of that asset or look to have a financing fee for that operation. And so we did over 30 customer interviews, finding out that storage and energy demand issues are of significant importance to commercial and industrial customers. And we talked to various regulatory agencies as well as installers and equipment manufacturers that recognize that this is a trend that their customers are starting to care about. And we did some outreach to CCAs in California, and this is actually our team today meeting with the community and governmental system of Schenectady, who expressed sincere interest in working with us on these projects. So like I said, we were looking to target the municipalities in helping them and keep their customers by providing the proper services for energy optimization and efficiency. We'll work with the installers and equipment manufacturers to gather the necessary information for our software system, and they would be incentivized because this is a value-added service to them, as it would be easier for them to then sell their system once their customers know how much money they can actually be making from these systems. We'll look to outreach to green and clean tech media outlets We will do some referral marketing and look into white label market solutions as we're looking to push our services and our benefits over our brand. And so the team currently consists of myself. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and I'm currently in the technology, commercialization, and entrepreneurship program here. I have a year of experience at a utility in Southern California working on an energy storage project. So I have a good understanding of what technical capabilities would be necessary for this endeavor. We're working with our academic lead, Dr. Ali Tajir, who has done some research in energy efficiency projects, as well as our mentor, Alan Evans, who was with Rewire Energy. He's the guy in that picture I just showed you. And they do energy efficiency projects. We've also consulted with Josh Ciccarelli, who has a background in doing grant writing and business development for battery storage companies, as well as Marty Byrne, who is the business development director and the Center for Future Energy Systems here at RPI. So we're looking for an initial investment of $150,000. This should expect us to do the initial software development as well as experience in power electronics to understand what data we're really looking at, as well as SG&A fees and our patent filing. And this we can expect to roll out these projects with these initial municipalities for an expected revenue of $120,000 in year one. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, Colin, just I was trying to remember if you were at the New York Best Conference last week.
I was not.
You were not.
I knew of it, but
right. So one thing that this area that you're addressing here was a big topic of discussion. And one of the things I took away, I don't understand all the stuff that they were talking about from a regulatory standpoint, but it's clear that this is going to be something that's going to be a moving target probably for the next 5 years. So in terms of developing a platform and having the upfront development costs, how are you going to be able to keep up with some of the regulatory changes that are going to affect the revenue model for something like this?
Right, and we're aware of the VEDR initiative, that's the Value and Distributed Energy Resources that they're looking to roll out in 2020. And we think that this fits in well with that because we're looking at deployed assets in the grid edge infrastructure, as well as looking to incorporate some of their dynamic pricing that they're trying to do, and we'll continue to outreach to them to make sure that our system adapts correctly over time.
Okay. My specific question was, are you going to have a team that's going to be able to continue to revise the software platform to keep up with the revisions?
Right. We will, as we roll this out, and with expected and hopeful success, we will look to keep these people on and continue to add features and ancillary services to our platform to remain competitive in the industry.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we got to keep trucking. Let's grab that.
Yeah. Okay. I will.
So, good evening. Clint was gracious enough to let me practice with this class today. I'm going to start out the same way I did there. I'd like you all to picture a burly, red-headed Irishman in the prime of his life. In March, he is admitted to a hospital with back pain. Goes in assuming it's basically a herniated disc. Finds out it's actually lung cancer that's progressed to the bone. All they can do at that point is palliative care and basically try to prolong the inevitable. By October, that inevitable comes along and he's gone. My father was 48 when he died, and I was 8. He left behind 5 kids and a wife. So our company is developing a point-of-care cancer monitoring test. The value proposition is that for cancer patients in remission, we can actually offer peace of mind These patients live in a constant threat and fear of recurrence. Basically, our test is low cost. It increases the frequency, which they can be monitored at, which also allows them to detect any recurrence earlier, which allows for cheaper and more effective therapies to be applied. The problem is that, again, cancer patients that have entered remission are at high risk of a recurrence. They never know if it's going to happen or not. They never know when it's going to happen. Current testing protocols basically involve imaging tests, surgical biopsies, both of which are high cost. The imaging tests can also carry risk due to radiation if they're CT scans or x-rays. That limits the ability that they can be applied, or the frequency with which they can be applied, both by cost and side effect. Our test is low cost, it's non-invasive, and increases the amount that it can be applied to potentially once a month, as opposed to up to 5 years, depending on how far out you've gone from their remission state. The prolonged period of time between detection and when the recurrence has occurred, as I stated, you don't know what's going to happen. You can be riddled by the point it's detected. Metastatic tumors are also more fragile before they're actually able to be imaged with the current technology, so the ability to use what are considered common, cheaper drugs, therapeutics, chemotherapeutics, has a chance at that point to actually knock it out, as opposed to what's been termed the $4 million new cancer drug by insurance execs that we've talked to. So the market opportunity, I can give you an idea of scope. I can't really give you a specific for our product at this point. Point of care diagnostics in particular are expected to be in the $37 billion range by 2025. Cancer diagnostics, regardless as to whether they're point of care or laboratory based, are upwards of 230 to 240 billion at the same time frame. Our technology is actually a disruptive technology. It has the potential to actually move that purple circle in the Venn diagram a little further over into the orange. We'd be able to be applied at doctors' offices, potentially primary physicians or oncologists. Early detection means cost reduction for insurance companies and for the patients. The therapeutics that can be applied are cheaper than the modern, newest class of drugs. NIH reported that the cost of cancer care in 2010 was about $125 billion a year in the US. To give you an example as to how much that's grown, at the time, new cancer drugs were about $5,000 a month for treatment. Now we're looking at about $10,000 to $30,000 for the new line of cancer chemotherapeutics that are out. So the solution is basically something along the lines of a glucose test monitor. Our technology adapts to that sort of a readout and does not require anything more than potentially urine or a small blood sample. It's non-invasive, as I've said, and potentially quantitative. Now, our competitors in the field are lab-based techniques, so complicated things like polymerase chain reaction that have to be applied by a skilled lab technician with expensive equipment. There are possible competitors in the point of care technology and testing field. Branch DNA is an example. This image is just to give you an idea as to how complicated their technology is versus ours. There's a multitude of moving parts. Many of these are replicated many times to get the readout that they get. Our technology consists of 2 parts. It's fairly simple. The revenue model that we're looking at, our goal really is to partner with existing point of care diagnostic companies. We're not looking to build a manufacturing company or do direct sales. We're hoping to get to proof of concept and potentially a prototype. Our traction validation, we've talked to a number of people in the field. We haven't actually been able to talk to any of the diagnostic companies yet. It's a little bit harder to get hold of people there. We have gotten a little bit of a nibble from 1 or 2. The people that we have talking to, insurance, health insurance executives, lab supply executives, oncologists, we've gotten nothing but positive feedback with the notion of early detection of cancer. We've actually also gotten a couple of ideas in terms of other ways the technology can be applied. It's a nucleic acid detection test that can be used for monitoring HIV viral load, HCV viral load response to therapies that are being used in those. So without really any further development, we can apply to those fields as well. Marketing sales strategy, again, we're not looking to build a manufacturing company or do direct sales, so our marketing is really more about making strategic relationships with diagnostic companies that are already out there doing similar types of work. Business development teams for those companies are always looking for new technology. We just need to get our way in to talk to them. Partnering suppliers such as Sigma, Millipore, who just merged, they produce a lot of the parts for these tests, so we can actually make headways by doing value added to their product and then putting us in contact with their existing clients, and they do that quite often, actually. So our team, Dr. Scott Tenenbaum at SUNY Poly is the principal investigator of the lab that the technology came out of. Frank Doyle is me. I am a bioinformaticist and actually the entrepreneurial lead for the team. I'm also a PhD candidate at SUNY Poly in nanobioscience. What we're looking for currently, we believe $500,000 will take us to the point that we can make a strategic licensing agreement. We need about $100,000 to cover administrative costs of running the business, legal costs, marketing, again, not advertising per se, but travel and ability to meet with the people that we need to talk to. We have accounting fees that need to be paid, legal fees, licensing fees. Research, we're looking at about $350,000 to hire 2 full-time techs and a postdoc, as well as pay for reagents and some other lab equipment that we will need to keep pursuing development of the technology. And about $50,000 for incubator space, which gives us access to a lot of shared equipment. So we're not really buying things that we don't need to have. And that is the end of the presentation.
Is this a home-based test?
It has the potential to be. We've gotten a lot of feedback from people like oncologists that that's not a great idea. Finding out that you may have a recurrence of cancer sitting in your living room by yourself is probably not psychologically the best thing to encounter. So being at a clinician's office and actually having somebody that's at least a little skilled with these type of technologies is probably preferable.
So the reason I ask this is when you compare it with a blood glucose monitor, which is a home-based test,
sure,
it creates that.
It's just illustrative of the simplicity of the test, not necessarily where it's going to be deployed.
Thank you.
Sure.
So with this technology, you have to develop an aptamer or a recognition system for each cancer, right? You need a biomarker.
Well, a sequence, but the key is what's actually the aptamer is it's an RNA binding protein recognition motif that interacts with our HRP conjugated RNA binding protein. That stays the same regardless. All we're using it for is it's being triggered to an on state. It's a molecular switch. It gets turned on by a small RNA, and that just requires Watson-Crick base pairing on either side of it.
Yeah, but you need the cancer to release a DNA or an RNA in the bloodstream.
Which there's a great deal of literature showing that microRNAs in particular are up and down regulated in certain cancers. So looking for the differential between those versus a control, you can actually detect the likelihood that there is a recurrence.
All right, we got to keep moving. Before teaching this thing, I didn't even know how to spell RNA. Hold on, come on. Come on, that was funny. Oh, thanks. Let's do it. Oh, cool. Hey, Lucian, here's this.
Oh yeah, that's probably good. It has to be on the first slide the whole time. All right, hi everybody. I'm Lucian. I'm with Seizu. I am Seizu. This is my pitch. Cool. So what is our value proposition? Essentially, don't lose what's valuable. Seizu is a scalable inventory tracking platform that prevents inventory loss and empowers businesses of all sizes by building trust, ensuring accountability, and stopping losses before they occur. So the problem. Essentially, imagine you operate a very large business and you have a lot of employees. You're going to incur losses and you're going to incur inventory shrink, which are somewhat similar but also different. And they occur because, or this occurs because of humans. So businesses, of course, rely on humans. We're all humans. We operate companies. Your end sellers are going to be selling your things and tracking your inventories for you. Humans are expensive, so in a lot of companies that I've seen, at least in San Francisco, where I've been the last few months, you pay like most of your cost either in like AWS server charges or just paying for your developers. So humans are expensive, and maybe we can take some of them out of the situation. Humans don't scale well, so if you have a store that needs to sell to a lot of people, you have to hire more people. And the human mind is fallible, so a lot of you that have been in the cohort for a while know that I have terrible memory, or at least I pitched and told everybody 10 times that I forget where my stuff is. So thus we've pivoted, and now this is a direct-to-business kind of model. And that comes into people forget things and lose track of their inventory, and businesses have this problem. So essentially, losses and shrink occur, and we can only react after the fact, and that comes with loss prevention. So the target market and opportunity, I see different players at different times. So it starts with smaller players. So hackerspaces, wineries/artisanal crafts. I talk to a lot of soap stores, some liquor manufacturers, people that have the problem that they have inventories that constantly change and they need to track them. And they do that manually, and they typically spend about 6 hours a week doing that. So there's a lot of time and money spent on tracking that. We're going for hackerspaces and these kind of people in particular because I talked to the CEO of Blackfire Research and previously Savvy Technologies, an RPI grad. Larger players can accept a lot of loss, and they're not tolerant of loss or downtime, whereas the smaller players, for the first year or so of putting this technology in the market, would accept some amount of error and would also accept downtime, and they have more better contracting schemes with us because we'd be able to put continuous integration and continually refresh their products and make our product better over time with them instead of being locked into enterprise sales cycles. So that moves into the serviceable available market, which is hopefully we could get all the hackerspaces and all of the artisanal craft stores to track our inventory with us, and that would be awesome. And then further down the line, we'd have high-end retail stores, automated manufacturing, artisanal crafts again, but like the full song. So that comes into, that's like the enterprise market, which we would eventually move into. They are unique because a lot of the utility of our platform comes from data that we wouldn't otherwise have and they wouldn't trust to give us, but we can get it from our smaller players first. So the solution, how do we solve inventory tracking, and how do we make sure that losses don't occur at both small and large scale? So it's a system of physical sensors. You've got cameras, you've got RFID tags /wireless / just beaming radio beams at things that respond to them, and you have 2D weight table, and all these feed data back to an intelligent platform that can do anomaly detection in real time and notify you when your inventory's changed, so giving you accounting and also telling you when things have been stolen by people and by whom and where. The value units that we provide to our consumers are automated inventory tracking, so that's especially plays into smaller players. They would really like that because the time savings is very valuable to them. Not so much for the enterprise, but it's useful to them too because they can have better accounting. Forecasts and insight into changes, so that's very useful to higher end players. And real-time anomaly detection and reporting is extremely useful to the high-end retail market. For example, I'll throw this out there, I talked to a corporate representative at Williams-Sonoma. They operate a lot of, they sell like toasters and like really nice stuff. At their largest stores, they lose $400,000 a year in like their top 10 largest stores. So that's a lot of shrink, they call it, and they wouldn't tell me where their shrink came from, but they hinted that like people take things and it's hard to track who took what. So here's an example of our prototype sensor. This is a 2D weight table, and it tells you essentially it's like a physical database. So you can put stuff that's of value to you on this table, and it will tell you where on this table it is and how much it weighs. And if you take things off of it, it knows if they're put back generally in the same location or there's a delta in average weight change. It'll tell you what was taken. So if you have a lot of bolts put on this thing and you need to pull specific bolts, you can pull them. If you have different SKUs of products, you can know what product is sitting where and query it, and then it'll correlate the time to when it was taken and where it was taken. This is scalable to like any size, and our core technology right now is like doing the weight detection and the algorithm that tells you where things are very cheaply and reporting to the cloud. Cool, so competition. We are in the kind of union of point of sales and security systems. So in retail markets, we can kind of be like Square or something like that. In factories and things like that, we can kind of take the place of a storeroom management system. So there are companies that come into factories and want to manage your storeroom for you. We can kind of help you do that internally and do that fast. bin tracking systems. So picture Amazon with the big warehouses, and it's like Indiana Jones where they go and pull things and tells them where they are in real time. And inventory management software. Orchid Systems does something like that, as well as bin tracking systems, so we're in that space. Revenue model, to smaller players, we'd like to just sell the rights to use the device because they really just want the ability to query where things are, make sure they're in the right place, and track their valuable assets. And then give them paid insights into using their inventory. So if you're a hackerspace, you probably, maybe you want to know like when a drill was used or something, or a specialty tool was used. But if you're, say, a soap company, you want to know when your expensive oils and stuff like that are being used, and how much and why and when, and who's taking them. And then the enterprise, there's a lot more things going on. We have all of the previous things with integration and paid insights, and all of this betterment of the platform that comes with having users previously. So that's what they get. Essentially, it boils down to selling devices, charging for the continuous use of those devices, and selling new insights that we get and are able to mine from the use of all of our devices over time. Traction validation roadmap. So I started out with reduced food waste last year in 2017. A lot of people were like, meh. And then I said, help people find things. That's a problem I have. A lot of people were like, I have Square already, or I don't lose things, or like direct quote, like my wife knows where everything I have is. So now we're helping people protect their important valuables and empower them with knowledge they wouldn't otherwise have at scale and to many people at the same time, and holding your employees accountable. Marketing and sales strategy, so you get access to the web portal and you can upload your stock spreadsheets and feed us with your data, and you for free get all of the anomaly detection or anything that we can run statically on your data that you give us, and in turn we are able to train better models. So yeah, the other two just kind of quantify the first one, and we want to pay people, we want to pay advertisers to get people to use our free service to hopefully convert them at a certain point in time where we say, look, if you just buy this device, we'll save you like X amount of dollars in the next 6 months. Like, why don't you just buy it right now? That's hopefully how we can convert small people. Enterprise people need to be contacted completely differently, and that comes with hiring on sales engineers. So the team, me right now, looking for people. Huge shout out to Kelly and Clint and my mentors, Professor Abu Zayed and Josh Tremblay. So here's a roadmap in the last 30 seconds I have. Our goal is to build more sensors, figure out what data is actually important, and build a production version of our sensors, and then integrate them to get early feedback from, like I said, the smaller players in the markets that we identified. And then to do that, we just need R&D materials, manufacturing equipment, salaries for a team, marketing, advertising costs at a very small scale, and just money to pay for servers to turn them on. The ask is $250,000, but really I could get like half of that done with 10 grand, which I'll have in August. So then, and like down the line in like 3 years, once I get my degree from college, when we'll have a lot of data, we can do enterprise stuff and sign a large retailer and go from 1,000 installs, which would encompass multiple devices, to 10,000 installs, and hopefully make a lot of money, because we made way more money on enterprise people because they have a lot of stores. When you sign one enterprise person, they're going to want to put you in all of their stores to make a lot of money all at once, and you're going to turn from a fire hose instead of sipping from like a very small faucet with these smaller players. And to do that, we'd actually need to hire on like a sizable team of like 10 plus people and get new access to IP and stuff like that. Because ultimately we'll probably be competing with the likes of Amazon. One way to do this kind of tracking of inventory is to start small and then go big, or you can be Amazon and buy Whole Foods and then just put all of your tracking systems inside of Whole Foods and win that way. So cool, that's my presentation.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, I got time for one quick question. Anybody's got a quick one?
Nope, we're good.
All right, cool. Actually, in this, we celebrate doing pivots. Pivots mean that you didn't go down a rat hole for too long, you changed. So, Lucian, good job, man. All right, I think we have 2 left. You guys want to arm wrestle for it? You guys? Okay. Practice, right?
No, Hala. So there's actually 3 of us.
Oh, there's 3 of us?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a 3-way arm wrestle. I forgot about that.
Over there.
All right, we have 2 more.
Hi everyone, thanks for sticking around. We're Hala Simple Technology. We are a group based out of the University of Albany. I'm going to start with one of our 2 problems tonight. I won't poll the audience, but most of you have probably heard of or seen CSI or shows like that, and a lot of people have a tendency to think that those processes actually happen in that short amount of time of that episode, but in reality they don't. Most of the analyses that are done in said shows actually take upwards of 2 hours. They cost a lot of money, so they don't have just one small team working on it. They're scientifically trained people. They're not the same people that go out into the field that also collect the evidence. They're a completely separate team. They're not tailorable, meaning they are looking for one piece of evidence for one particular finding from that evidence. And most importantly for us, they don't use all of the evidence that they could potentially be getting from that crime scene. They solely look for a DNA profile, or they solely look at a fingerprint image, and that's it. They don't really go much further than that. So that's the law enforcement forensic aspect. The other side of our market that we could go for in a similar context is law enforcement and the public with a breathalyzer alternative. Current breathalyzers are relatively expensive, more or less so for law enforcement. They're invasive. They require a tube to be put in your mouth, and you have to blow for approximately 10 seconds. They require for law enforcement a calibration so that they're accurate, and they're actually not as accurate as one might think. After our customer discovery, we found out about 50% of breathalyzer tests are inaccurate, which is a huge number. And for the personal use, people don't really use them. They just say, I've waited long enough, or I've had enough water. So those are the two problems, market problems that we're trying to look at today. For our value proposition for law enforcement, we're looking for a faster, more efficient way to use all of their evidence, not just one particular part of it, using just an evidence analysis method that is simple, straightforward. It can be done at a crime scene or in a lab, not much scientific training needed. You can see the comparison between some of their current methods versus ours. We can use all of the biofluids. You don't need to be trained, they're tunable. We can kind of use a similar system for multiple different markers or multiple different pieces of the evidence, and they're less time consuming than the methods that they're already using. For the public, we have this blow for 10 seconds. I don't know if you've ever tried doing that while you're drunk, but it's very difficult. And I'm assuming if you're law enforcement, trying to do this 3 or 4 times to get your 10-second blow is going to be difficult. So with our method, a police officer can do this without having them. They could be sitting down, they could be lying down in the street, and they'd be able to get a response. And it's far more accurate, way less than 50%. Our market size, we have 2 sides. We've got the law enforcement side, starting with the New York State Police, more or less University of Albany Police, because they work through the state, but they're small enough where we can maybe get a pilot study. Going up to the regional law enforcement, and ultimately the law enforcement in the US. For the public side, we have the local college students. This is a UAlbany number, and the Albany Capital Region universities, all DWI offenders, and then ultimately college and young professionals, which is a huge number throughout the US. For our competitors, we have 2 sides. Our evidence analysis, you've got rapid DNA and para-DNA. You can see there's not much that overlaps with us, more or less just the time and the portability, but their efficiency in terms of analyzing the evidence is not as good as ours. They're also non-invasive. And for BAC analysis, you have the Data Master and the traditional breathalyzer, neither of which are non-invasive, neither of which are straightforward to a point. The breathalyzer traditionally is pretty straightforward, but very inaccurate, as I mentioned before. The Data Master is a very similar concept, but much more scientific. It's an instrument probably about the size of the projector. For attraction and validation, we currently have our customer discovery that we've been doing and that we will continue to do, which we've validated that they need quicker, more efficient, and accurate methods. For the breathalyzers, they're not always right, that 50% number. And the need for non-invasive analyses. A lot of people don't want the breathalyzer test, they refuse it, then they have to go for a blood draw, and it becomes more complicated. In terms of our MVP, we have the 2 options, the breathalyzer alternative or the forensic kits, which are just the evidence analysis methods. And we have validated that there's a potential partner that we could work with called Detectichem out of Texas. They would be able to do the more digital smartphone app type technology that we're looking for. And then we've also kind of validated the need for a license of the know-how, as our university calls it, versus a patent. Our revenue model, since we have the 2 sides, for the alcohol kits, you can sell them in the store just like they do with the breathalyzers now, either online or in the actual store itself. You can also sell in terms of the law enforcement side through their chemical companies, Searchy, Cayman, and Detectichem that law enforcement are currently buying through. And then eventually we'd like to have our analysis method in the same way, going through these same companies, and hopefully once we establish most of these methods, we'll be able to establish a database of correlations between the evidence, the, as you saw earlier, color change, and have it be correspondent so that you just have to run your test, go to the database, and see where you match. And if we eventually can get that set up, it would be a subscription base. Marketing and sales, most of our marketing will be through conferences, either presenting this as a research method or presenting, having a booth set up where we can have demonstrations. Internet advertisements, ones that we do, or down here with the help of Detective Chem and Searchy, who obviously already have their own advertisements since they're successful companies. We also have our own website that we've set up a couple weeks ago, and flyers to the local departments. We realize they do not respond to emails, so sending them an email probably isn't a great idea. As for who we are, my name's Erica Brunel, I'm the entrepreneurial lead. That's Cheyenne and Mindy. All three of us are chemists at UAlbany. Kind of the backbone of this. We are always looking for somebody to help with the entrepreneurial side of it, since we have no experience whatsoever in it. Our PI in the back at UAlbany as our academic lead, and our mentor Jeff, who couldn't be here tonight. Lastly, our investment. We're initially looking for $200,000 for the first 18 months. We really like to get out of UAlbany, since that seems to be quite a big boundary for us in terms of property and instrumentation use. So if we can get our own space, we can set up our own instrumentation, our own chemicals, and not be constricted with UAlbany rules and regulations, especially in terms of licensing the know-how and the science from that. Further from this, we'd be able to further develop the research in said lab space in order to tailor our projects to what law enforcement would want or what the public would want.
Questions?
Are you developing two technologies for two problems, or one technology that solves two problems?
It's essentially one technology that solves two problems.
Is it a device or a chemical?
It can be both. So we have the chemical, most of the chemicals kits, pretty much well established, and we can, like I said, tailor those to whatever they want. So when we were doing our customer discovery, we asked law enforcement, okay, well, what about your suspect do you want to know? Is there something that you more often than not don't know about your suspect? And then we can make our assays based on that. For the alcohol side of it, that's really, you can really only do that a couple of ways using the same method.
Okay.
Have you guys talked to any defense lawyers or anything about issues with DWI tests?
Yeah, so actually that's where I got that 50% number. I talked to 2 DWI lawyers that of the 6 that I reached out to, and that's where the 50% number came from. They're supposed to run the breathalyzer. If you blow over the legal limit, they're supposed to hold you for 30 minutes and retest you. They don't. That being said, that's where most of the DWI convictions come from, overturns come from, because they're arguing more or less the method than the breathalyzer. But one of the key quotes that they mentioned was the breathalyzer itself is a respiratory test for your circulatory system. So really, how comparable are those numbers to begin with, if you're measuring 2 different biological processes?
All right, let's keep on trucking. I thought I already beat you, man.
Huh?
I was on a roll with the Albany Med Pros. Thought that I already grabbed you before.
All right. Hello, I'm Alex Adam, and I'm here to tell you about our solution to Jeep rosacea. I'm a research scientist with over 20 years of experience in molecular and cellular biology, and my partner Ted is an ophthalmic surgeon with a strong background in clinical research. Our story started over 5 years ago in Ted's lab. He was seeing way too many patients with rosacea that could not find any solution for their condition. And these are true quotes for actual patients from his office. What he could do is to give them medication to solve some of the symptoms, but there were no tools to treat the actual cause of the disease. And he realized that the lack of tools was a direct result of the lack of understanding of rosacea. So he came to my lab and convinced me to do the research to learn from the disease itself. He knew that by doing this research, we could make a real difference to our patients. So many of you will know what rosacea is. In short, it's a very common skin disease for which there is no cure. And there are over 60 million cases in the US, and many more worldwide. So what you see here is a very mild form of the disease. It may affect the face and can have a wide range of manifestations, from a burning sensation to scarring, and that can lead to embarrassment, anxiety, and depression. Also, if it affects the eyelids, it can damage the cornea. So rosacea is a very big problem for our patients. Because of that, there are many treatment options already in the market. Those can be quite expensive, but they're not very effective. And they're not effective because they only mask the effects of rosacea. They do not treat the actual cause of the disease. Considering prescription medications and over-the-counter treatments, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is growing every year. Now, those patients that are spending thousands of dollars without seeing any relief are desperate for a better solution. What we propose is a new scientific approach to the problem. We began 5 years ago asking one simple question: why is the skin of rosacea patients different from normal skin? We focus on our patients. After many years of research, we identified a specific protein that is activated in the skin cells of patients with rosacea. So what do I mean by that? What you see here is how normal skin looks under the microscope. This is a sample we obtained from one of our volunteers. And on your right, you have a biopsy from one of our rosacea patients. This brown stain that you see here is how we detect in the lab the genes I just mentioned. Now, because we now understand this change, we can develop a cream that blocks this protein and revert the diseased skin back to a normal state. Now we're treating the actual cause for a much more effective treatment, and we call our cream Matinib. To achieve that, we're repurposing an existing drug that is already being used in oncologic application, and it has a very good safety and efficacy profile. Our topical application will have an even better safety profile than was it already approved by the FDA. So this is the prototype we created to perform our animal studies. This was created in collaboration with our partners at pharmaceutical labs. This is an FDA-approved compounding pharmacy located right here in Albany that was able to make the prototype for us. We finished those studies already, and we entered into the clinical phase. Now, while we're doing our clinical trials, we started to try to learn more about our customers, and this is why we became part of the NSF ICOP program. So we had identified before what would be our early adopter patients. This is a small percentage of the patients that are highly engaged, but do not respond to current therapies. Our informal research has already proven to us that those patients were actively searching for a better solution. Our plan is, once we have a proven record on these patients, to target our majority group. These are patients that are not 100% satisfied with the current treatments, but may not be ready just yet to try a new medication. Now, I told you about patients, but I didn't tell you about customers, right? So this is going to be a prescription medication for a chronic treatment. So who's really our customer? Is it the patient, or is the doctor that prescribed the medication? Because of the long-term relationship between patients and doctors for this kind of treatment, we believe that our customer would be actually both, will be the patient and the doctor talking together. Now, the next logical question is to ask which doctors. We expected to find that dermatologists, ophthalmologists, and primary care physicians were going to be prescribing medications for rosacea. After many interviews with different pharmacies all over the Hudson Valley, from Latham in the north to Hyde Park in the south, we really realized that very few primary care physicians and pretty much no ophthalmologists were prescribing rosacea medications. So we will be focusing specifically, at least at the beginning, just on dermatologist offices. And we'll reach them directly at their offices and through scientific publications and presentation at medical conferences and through partnership with the National Rosacea Society. So we really succeeded in identifying a drug target, developed a prototype medication, identified our initial target customer, and we already completed our preclinical testing. And we enter now into clinical trials. Before beginning sales, the science must be tested in multiple rounds of clinical trials to ensure safety and efficacy. Once we finish those trials, we need to seek FDA approval for the launch. We already obtained funding from a FuseHub award 3 months ago to begin our first pilot phase 1 trial. After a successful completion of this trial, we expect a much larger clinical trial during 2019 before filing for FDA approval. And we expect, if all trials go as expected, to obtain FDA approval and begin sales in mid-2020. So our initial plan is to continue our partnership with pharmaceutical labs, the FDA-approved manufacturing facility, to contract the production and distribution of our cream. But other licensing agreements or IP sale will be also considered. Our next round of funding will be required for, as I mentioned, the next milestone, which will be the larger clinical trial. And for that, we expect to require $1.5 million to complete those trials and the FDA filings, but the final number will depend on the results of the trials and any potential request of the FDA for more information. Once we succeed with these trials and obtain FDA approval, we'll require yet another round of funding to prepare for our launch, and that will include costs associated with marketing and manufacturing. We have the expertise to achieve our goals. Ted and I have over 20 years of research experience each, and our competitive grants and peer-reviewed publications already demonstrate our expertise in rosacea. And we've already been working for over 5 years in what we expect to be an 8 years journey towards MAPRO and commercialization. Our key partners are pharmaceutical labs and the Albany Med Bag are instrumental to ensure our success in prototyping, manufacturing, and selling our cream. So we have now the opportunity to impact millions of patients that are struggling with emotional and physical trauma of rosacea. We're Practice Biotechnology, and we thank you for your attention.
All right, questions?
Based on your experience, how very subjective question, what do you think is the risk level for your next phase of clinical trials?
Depending on what you call for risk, for side effects risks?
No, I mean like
for
everything panning out the way.
Well, that's it's very difficult to tell you a number. I cannot tell you a number. We need to finish our clinical trials, and the patients will tell us before we finish. Our first clinical trials is only to demonstrate safety. It's going to be a very limited trial to ensure safety of the medication, and we are very confident that because we're going to be applying a much lower amount topical, so we have no issues. Well, this is going to work, and on which patients, this is a question that is still open.
Sure. The reason I'm asking is because you have 1.5 million for an investor, you're looking at 1.5 million. What is the risk level associated with that?
Right. So right now, we plan to apply for an STTR grant from NIH and U0 grants. Although we're also open to angel investors, but we're not going to start talking to investors before we finish our first clinical trial.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, we have one more.
Thank you.
All right. And this is good because we're in the collar city.
Oh yeah. Good evening, everybody. Aren't you glad this is the last one? I'm Michaela Bailey. I'm doing my final pitch for the SRJ collar. So I have two value propositions for this one for EMTs who will be using it and one for patients who will actually be in these collars. For EMTs, current cervical collars can be found to be unsafe and hard to use. What we're trying to do is make them safer, more efficient, and easier to apply to patients. And for the patients themselves, it can be uncomfortable and unsafe. For them, this redesign will be safer and more comfortable for the patient. Problem I came across last semester while I was interning at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. And so somebody had come up with a design for a cervical collar, a hard one, that would be able to fit underneath motorcycle helmets. You can see like a full helmet. If you get that collar on the right, it's definitely not going to fit in this little space. So when we were researching how to do this, we found a few problems with current cervical collars, mainly with the safety. The three main things are you're not able to open your mouth. It can reduce mouth opening by up to 25%, or 25% or more, excuse me, which can be pretty bad when you have to intubate somebody. You got to undo the cervical collar, and that messes with your cervical spine. Another one, vertebrae stretching. It can push the shoulders away from the neck and extend your spine. And if you've got an injury there, it's not going to be too great. Finally, intracranial pressure, where it allows blood into the head but not back out. So what I was trying to prove through this program was that this is hard to use and it's uncomfortable. It doesn't really fit people correctly. And thankfully, I was able to validate these. My target market is the daily users. So that's going to be your EMTs, your hospitals, And to give you a bit of scope, there are about 248,000 EMTs at any given time in the US. And a specific example I have for Mount Sinai, one part of their hospital in New York City sees about 5 people a day that have to use a cervical collar. This comes out to about 1.4 million people in cervical collars per year in just New York City. Think about how many cities are across the US. One thing I did learn during this, coming from Mount Sinai, I knew that they provided their EMTs with cervical collars, like the EMTs are connected to the hospital, but that's not the case everywhere. Most rural and suburban EMS people are supplied through the fire department or regional medical suppliers. So the solution to this would be an adjustable soft cervical collar that transforms into a rigid body. And I've talked about this before. You can see on the right with the GIF, that's an example of soft robotics, basically using inflation. And on the left, you have granular jamming, which is using something that's soft, taking all the air out, and it becomes a conformable, rigid structure. And by doing this, we're hoping to make it more efficient, safer for the patient, and easier to apply. The competition I have right now is the most recent one that we found is the Quick vacuum cervical splint on the right, and or the left for you guys. And for that one, they're specifically using granular jamming. They're taking all the air out and making it a moldable to each specific person. While this is a major component of my product, they don't have everything down. They're adding safety and stability, but with our added inflation, you can get all the extra stuff. With that one, we're not sure how much the patient can actually move their head. And of course, the original cervical collar that inspired this all, usually this is the brand that people use. For the revenue model, we want to hit medical supply distributors and catalogs, as well as online sales. So this will be done through online retailers, such as Amazon, and our own personal website. For the traction and validation of my roadmap, specifically through this program, I was able to validate the value propositions and customer segments. This was done through about 30 customer interviews with EMTs, fire and policemen, patients, and hospital staff. For the future, I'm going to be talking to more EMTs at Mount Sinai and hopefully a neurosurgeon for their input. Moving on, it's going to be prototyping and testing. For the marketing and sales strategy, as I mentioned, online sales, medical device suppliers, as well as internet advertisements. I've seen so many things on Facebook. I've been searching up cervical collars and they're all popping up on the sidebar. So obviously they know what I'm looking for. So if we can hit that market as well, that would be great. And of course, help from Mount Sinai for actually getting the product out there. So my team is myself. I'm an aerospace engineering major at RPI. My mentor, Steve Lavelle, is an entrepreneur. And the academic lead, John Drazen, is an RPI professor. Along with these guys, I've been working closely with Mount Sinai through the duration of this program. So I'm asking for about $200,000 investment over 12 months. This will allow me to have lab space, prototyping materials, be able to start manufacturing those prototypes that we come up with, and as well as creating a website and upkeeping it. So that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Questions?
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Does it have to be like motorcycle helmets?
No, that was just the inspiration for it. So
Right.
it's going to have a wide-ranging application.
Right. So maybe you want to emphasize that.
Definitely. Yeah, I was explaining the inspiration for the product.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody. Thank you all for sticking around. You know what? If I could have the teams come up here, we'll do a quick team photo. So I know some folks have already bugged out. And you rest of the guys from the crowd, stick around, ask a few more questions too, okay? But thank you all for coming.